I just joined a new D&D campaign, and you know what that means. Time to turn a simple, efficient character sheet into a full-on illuminated manuscript that's a little less efficient to use, but a hell of a lot prettier. I've already made 2 other D&D character journals, one for my Warlock Druid Aisling, whose campaign unfortunately fizzled out, and one for my Deep Gnome Barbarian Penelope, whom I still play every 2 weeks. Yeah, it's been years, but how are we supposed to defeat the big bad if we haven't thoroughly unpacked every single NPC's unresolved childhood trauma yet, you know? Are these journals necessary? No. Are they helpful? Honestly, not really, but I love making them and they help me develop and feel more connected to my characters. Anyway, if you think the journal's overkill, wait until you hear the original song. We'll get to that later. Let's talk materials. We're starting with a little miniature binder. I really like using binders because it makes it super easy to add or replace pages as the character levels up, or as I learn what is and isn't working for me about my initial layout. And I like mini binders because they're cuter. That's it, that's the whole motivation. This journal came with lined paper, which is great since I like that for taking session notes, but for the main pages, I'll be using these clear plastic sleeves. This protects the pages, plus it also allows me to mark any temporary information, like uses of spells and abilities or temp hit points, with a dry erase marker. My new character is a caster, so I also got some card sleeves to hold all of her spell cards, and of course, scrapbooking paper, washi tape, colored pens, and various little decorative elements. This is like $150 worth of materials, and I only used a fraction of it, but I couldn't save Joanne Fabrics, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna let Michaels be next. Now, unlike my last 2 journals, this character is brand new, so I haven't had time to collect art or create a cosplay yet. Thankfully, an incredible illustrator named AGATA FISZER, also known online as Furball Sarina, had reached out a few months before about partnering on a project, and she agreed to create the very first image of my new character, Gemini Tavari. I shared some overly wordy descriptions and a few reference images, and AGATA got to work. Gemini comes from a noble family, and she dresses for fashion rather than practicality. She has green hair and yellow skin, totally unrelated to my need to complete my rainbow collection of tiefling cosplays. That would be so shallow. It's for a deep narrative reason. Stop asking. AGATA did a beautiful job on this piece, and if you want some of her art for yourself, she is open for work. I'll put her contact info in the description. She's really interested in doing more tabletop projects, and don't worry, she has a really strict supervisor to keep her on track. Now, you're probably seeing that instrument and thinking, Ginny, are you serious? A tiefling bard? You couldn't have come up with something a little more creative? But believe it or not, I have never actually played a tiefling or a bard in a full campaign. I know they show up a lot on this channel, but this is going to be my first time playing a bard for anything other than a one-shot or a guest appearance, so you're not allowed to roll your eyes at it. I'm serious, don't do it, I will press charges. Now, since this is the only image of Gemini so far, I've printed off some vintage-style stock illustrations for when I need to fill space. Once I've commissioned some art and probably made a cosplay, I'll be able to go back in and introduce more images to this layout. After years of playing only homebrew campaigns, this game will actually be my first module. I know, I really did that backwards. It's like driving an 18-wheeler for a few years before finally getting behind the wheel of a Honda Civic. We're playing Rime of the Frost Maiden, and if you've played it, you may know that there's an optional mechanic where every character has a secret. This is what I'm most excited about for this project. I want to incorporate Gemini's secret into this journal in ways that are invisible to my fellow players now, but allow for a dramatic reveal once the secret's out. Now, obviously, I'm gonna tell you Gemini's deep, dark secret, but first, today's sponsor, because what kind of bard would I be if I didn't milk the suspense? How's the Humblewood campaign going? You're playing that new book, right? The one that just launched on Kickstarter? Yeah, Humblewood Beyond the Canopy. It's kinda rough. I mean, don't get me wrong, the book is amazing. It's a brand new standalone setting guide with 4 new regions and an adventure that takes you across the whole continent. It's the party that's the issue. Uh-oh. Problem players? 100%. There are tons of new player options like the Gadgeteer class and all these new subclasses and even 6 full new species, but they both chose to play the new Illurin cat species. It's like, can't we be a little more creative? Huh. That is kind of weird. And even though there are more than 40 new monsters and NPCs, they don't really want to roleplay much. Anytime they meet one of the new bird folk or rodent folk, they just immediately attack. Have you talked to them about it? I've tried, but they just interrupt me to demand food or start knocking stuff off the game table. What? That's crazy. Why are you still playing with them? Well, I already went to humblewood2.com and pledged on Kickstarter, so it would suck to end the game. Plus, they're my roommates, so it's a little complicated. Shoot. Do you think they heard me talking about them? So awkward. Before we start on the inside of the journal, I'm just gonna fancy up the outside a little. I bought these gold corner filigrees and I'm just super gluing them onto the front and back corners to bring a little of the aesthetic of nobility. Eventually, I'd like to paint over the silver hardware with gold, but I don't currently have a paint that's capable of that, so it'll have to wait. For now, we'll just say that mixed metals are on trend in Waterdeep. I like to start each of these journals with a cover page. It's the first thing you see when you open the binder, so this is where I'm gonna put Agata's beautiful illustration. I'm layering it over this marble scrapbook paper and using using these little gold photo corners to make it feel appropriately lavish for a noble woman. And finally, I'm hand lettering her name because I badly underestimated how hard it is to do black letter fonts without a calligraphy pen. Perfect example of the classic bard motto, work gaudier, not smarter. These little photo corners are cute, but there's a secret second reason that I used them. By not gluing down the picture, I can remove it and hide a second picture behind it. That's right, it's time for the first little Easter egg. You see, Gemini's big secret is that… what? Oh, you're worried that the other players are gonna see this. Don't worry. People in my real life stopped watching these years ago. Except for my mom. Hi, Mom. Gemini's big secret is that she isn't actually a tiefling. Layered behind her portrait is her true form. Gemini is a changeling, like her mother, but the Tavari matriarch refused to accept a changeling daughter-in-law, driving Gemini's mother away and leaving her little changeling daughter behind to grow up in the lap of luxury, but under constant pressure to prove that she's a true Tavari. Gemini wears her tiefling form all the time, even when she's alone. She hasn't shapeshifted since childhood, because maybe if she tries hard enough to be like them, her family will finally accept her. That's right, she's a sad girl. The saddest girl in the whole world. The first few pages will cover all the basic info, proficiencies, skills, ability scores. There's also another secret hidden here. I'm writing tiefling in the journal because the other players will probably see it, but my tiny blacklight reveals the truth. That's right, this grown adult bought invisible ink pens. The only thing I'm embarrassed about is that I didn't already own one. There's honestly not a ton of creativity in these first few pages. It's mostly just me painstakingly penciling in straight lines and then going over them in ink and erasing the guides afterwards. I could probably make this information a little prettier if I were willing to spread it over more pages, but this is most of what I need for non-combat gameplay, and I like being able to see it all at once. So I'm going light on the decor and just focusing on making everything neat and readable. Except I hated the way I wrote senses, so I'm doubling down on hand lettering a calligraphic font. Whatever, we're in too deep to quit now. You'll notice that I'm keeping a few of these things in pencil, and that's because they're things that will change as she levels up. This way I can just erase them and rewrite them whenever they need to be updated. This right-hand page is for ability scores and skills. I actually really like how the new 2024 character sheet has grouped skills and saves by their related ability scores, so I'm mimicking that in my journal. Isn't it kind of weird that we don't have any constitution-related skills? Guess the designers didn't think digest dairy would get rolled much. The next spread covers the rest of the first page of the character sheet. I gotta say, if I'd imagined myself hand lettering the word proficiencies back at the beginning of this journal, I would have made very different choices. I never realized how many letters are in that stupid word. Now I'm just gonna put you on a brief hold while I pivot from scrapbook to coloring book. Thank you for holding. Your call is very important to us. I'm putting Bardic Inspiration and the College of Glamour's Mantle of Inspiration on this page since they're related. These aren't all of Gemini's features, but I think Beguiling Magic makes more sense in the spellcasting section. I had some fanciful notion of fitting the mandolin on this page as well. Failed that insight check pretty hard. Guess we'll put it on the next page. This is where her inventory will go, which means more hand lettering. Why did I do this to myself? This also seems like a good spot to list her only two non-magic attacks, a dagger and an unarmed strike that deals a grand total of 0 damage. Relatable. That's why I always carry a sword. There's enough room here for both the mandolin and a little dagger. You might notice that there is no mandolin in D&D, and the stringed instrument Gemini is proficient with is the lute, but the instrument that I use as a cosplay prop and the one pictured in her portrait is a bullback mandolin. I made this choice deliberately so that pedantic musicians have something to complain about in the comments, and that's called supporting artists. At this point, I toyed with including dividers to separate the journal into sections for spells, music, notes, etc., but the dividers I got for this journal looked super boring and way too similar to the parchment I was using as my main page background, so I scrapped that idea. If I wanted my character sheet to be boring, I would have played a variant human fighter. Sorry, that was uncalled for. As if Tiefling Bard is original. This is gonna be my magic section. So first I'm just noting down all my spellcasting stats, and then I'm adding that Beguiling Magic feature that I mentioned earlier. It activates when I cast certain kinds of spells, so this just feels like a more practical place for it. And then at the bottom of this page, I'm including another secret. As a changeling, Gemini has the power to shapeshift, and even though she hasn't used that power in many years, I want to be ready just in case something happens during the campaign that makes her change her mind. And of course, I don't want my fellow players to see that ability, so I'm creating a cute little envelope with a fake House Tavari seal, gluing it to the page, and just tucking that little ability card inside. With the Arcane Spellbook cards and one card from the Cleric set, I was able to find almost all her spells. Unfortunately, the Vicious Mockery card is only available in the Bard deck, which has been discontinued, and the new 2024 Spellbook cards haven't been released yet, so I had to handwrite Vicious Mockery on a blank card. See? This is my punishment for waiting too long to play a bard. Now that all the mechanics are covered, there are a handful of little narrative things I'd like to throw in here. First things first, the noble house of Tavari is super important to Gemini's story. I'm making a little family tree purely for narrative clarity. It's definitely not just an excuse to come up with a half dozen more tiefling virtue names. That would be so irrational. You know, as someone who has a name that is considered fairly unusual, part of me is like, please just name your children things that others will be able to spell. But there's also a little devil on my shoulder whispering, wouldn't it be cool if we had names like Eternal and Athenaeum? So that's why it's a good thing I'm not having kids. This also finally gives me a spot to put this heraldic crest that I photoshopped, which is good, because if I'd spent 20 whole minutes on that and not even used it, I would have felt pretty silly. Anyway, back to this 10-hour fantasy scrapbooking project. The last thing on my to-do list is a bard's greatest talent, a skill that starts in the sheets. Sheet music, I mean, obviously. I found some staff paper in the right size for this journal, so naturally I decided that I should write some Gemini Tavari originals. Eventually, I want these to be inspired by the adventures that play out at the table, but for the first one, I thought it would be fun to write kind of a theme song for the campaign, a song that uses the metaphor of winter to talk about secrets. By the way, it's been over 10 years since I wrote a lead sheet, so if anything looks off, that's just how they do music notation in Icewind Dale. And yes, I did record the song. I'm really not good at doing things on a reasonable scale. Overdoing stuff is my baseline, so we'll use it as the soundtrack for a final flip through of the finished journal.
Neath the shy sweep of a snowdrop's cloak, shrouded in sleep under leaf-bare oak, armored in ice in their frozen tombs, little spring secrets wait to bloom. Blow, blow, thou winter wind, cover the sound of our winter sins. Fall, fall, oh winter snow, thou will soon melt and all will know. Merry they cheer for the...
If you want the whole song, it's not quite streaming service worthy, but I've put a link in the description where you can download the MP3 if you want. It was accompanied on the mandolin thanks to my talented friend Blake Smith, who also mixed and mastered it with extremely short notice. It's okay, he's used to me by now. When I say this journal is finished, that's really kind of a meaningless statement. Not only will it continue to be updated as we play, but I used it at the table during last night's session and immediately found like 4 things I wanted to change or add. You could say it's a living document. I'm so excited about this game because it's a bunch of firsts. My first time playing a bard for more than 1 or 2 sessions, my first time playing a campaign module, and for the DM, which is my husband Josh, it's his first time running a whole campaign. Now all I need to do is teach him how to apply body paint and he can fully replace me. That's what we in the industry call the long game.